No one is born a monster. You become one when the world tries to tear your heart out, and you decide to tear out its throat in return. My name was Myrtale. Later, Olympias. Later still, Stratonic. But in my dreams I always remained who I had been as a child among the deep forests of Epirus, the daughter of serpents. I remember the night my fate was sealed. It happened on the island of Samothrace, during the great mysteries. The air smelled of sulfur, sea spray, and fear. We, the initiated, danced to the rhythm of the drums, drums that echoed the heartbeat of the earth. I felt the cool scales of my beloved companion, a great serpent, sliding along my skin beneath my chiton. Snakes never bit me. They knew that the blood of Aeacus, son of Zeus, ran in my veins, and the blood of Achilles. I was not merely a princess of a small mountain kingdom. I was a vessel for something greater. That was where I first saw him. Philip, he was not yet the one-eyed demon of war remembered by history. Then he was the young king of Macedonia, a wild, barbarian land to the north, where men drank their wine unmixed and settled matters with a sword rather than with words. He looked at me not as a woman, but as territory to be conquered. You dance as if you're trying to summon a storm, he said, catching my hand as the music fell silent. His palm was rough with calluses earned from the spear. I am the storm, king, I answered, without lowering my gaze. The snake coiled around my neck hissed, raising its head. Philip did not flinch. He smiled. That night we conceived not merely an alliance between two realms, Epirus and Macedonia. We conceived a war that would last our entire lives. Macedonia greeted me with cold. Their capital, Pella, was stone and mud compared to the sacred groves of my homeland. Here, the old mysteries were not revered. Here, only strength was. I became queen, yet to the Macedonian nobility I was always that witch from Epirus. They whispered behind my back. Said I was a sorceress, that I had bewitched Philip. Fools! Philip required no enchantment, he needed an heir, and he needed an ally on his border, but love. Love between us was a strange beast. Passionate and cruel, the first years were like a battlefield. Philip was constantly at war. He returned smelling of horse, blood, and other women. In Macedonia, kings had many wives. It was normal. But I was not one of many. I was Olympias. I demanded worship. You've brought your crawling creatures into our bed again. He would shout, finding a serpent beneath the pillow. They guard my sleep while you warm yourself in the arms of dancers, I answered calmly. They are more loyal than you. Loneliness in the palace gnawed at the mind. To keep myself from breaking, I turned back to the old gods. I held bacchanals in the mountains. We women ran through the forest, shattering the silence with our cries, falling into holy trances. It terrified the Macedonians. They feared what they could not understand. And that fear became my first weapon. Then a miracle occurred. A dream. I dreamed that a bolt of lightning struck my womb. The fire did not burn me, it poured through my body, filling me with a power no mortal had ever possessed. When I awoke, I knew, I was with child. And I knew something else. Philip was father to the child's body, but its spirit. Its spirit belonged to Zeus himself. Alexander was born on the night the temple of Artemis in Ephesus burned. The priests said the goddess had been too occupied with bringing the future ruler of the world into existence to save her own sanctuary. When I first held him in my arms, I understood everything. Every humiliation, every betrayal by Philip, every cold look from the courtiers, none of it mattered. What lay in my arms was not a child. It was an instrument of vengeance. A sword that would conquer the world, Philip rejoiced. He has my eyes, he proclaimed proudly, showing the infant to his generals. He has the eyes of someone who sees farther than you. I murmured softly when he could not hear. I raised Alexander not as the son of a king, but as the son of a god. I whispered to him of Achilles as he drifted to sleep. I taught him to despise weakness. I taught him that the world is divided into two kinds of people, those who possess, and those who are possessed. Mother, why does father shout at you? Little Alexander asked, hiding behind my chiton as drunken Philip erupted in yet another scene of jealousy. Because he is afraid, my lion, I said. He sees in you something he will never achieve himself. He is only a man. And you are not. Years passed. Alexander grew, and the gulf between Philip and me became bottomless. He aged, lost an eye in battle, limped, grew ever more unpredictable and cruel. I, meanwhile, blossomed in my hatred, but the worst was yet to come. Drunk on power, Philip decided he needed a new wife. Not merely a concubine, a lawful wife. A pure-blooded Macedonian, Cleopatra Eurydice. Young, foolish, and extraordinarily dangerous to us. The wedding day of Philip and Cleopatra became the day of my downfall. And the day I finally transformed into the very legend used to frighten children. I was not at the feast. I sat in my chambers, listening to distant music and laughter. Every beat of the drum felt like a blow to my dignity. He betrayed me openly. He humiliated me before the whole world. But worse still, the marriage threatened Alexander. If Cleopatra bore a son, he would be a pure-blooded Macedonian. Alexander, half Epirot, could easily be cast aside. Or killed. The doors burst open. Alexander rushed in. His face was ablaze, his clothing torn. Mother, we're leaving. Now. What happened? I grabbed his shoulders. Attalus, the uncle of the new bride. He raised a toast. He begged the gods to grant Philip and Cleopatra a legitimate heir. I felt my blood turn to ice. And what did your father do? Alexander looked away. His eyes glittered with furious tears. He drew his sword and lunged at me when I threw my cup at Attalus. But he was so drunk he fell over, tripping on the table. I said to him, "Look, people. This man wants to cross from Europe into Asia, yet he cannot even cross from his couch to his chair." I embraced my son. My golden boy. My God, pack your things, Alexander. We are going to Epirus. To my brother. But we will return. I promise you, we will return, and Macedonia will tremble. That night we fled. I left Pella as an exile. But in my mind, a plan was already forming. A plan so dark that even the gods of the underworld would nod in approval. If Philip thought he could replace me, he was mistaken. If he thought he could rob my son of the throne, he had signed his own death sentence. Betrayal demands blood, and I was ready to drown the world in it if it meant my son would wear the crown. Life in exile in Epirus was bitter as wormwood. My brother, King Alexander, yes, he too was named Alexander, irony of fate, welcomed us, yet I saw caution in his eyes. He feared Philip's wrath. The Macedonian army was the strongest in the world, but I had another army. My army was made of spies, poisons, and secret letters. I sat in the high tower of the fortress at Dodona, gazing south, toward Macedonia. I knew Philip's weaknesses better than anyone. His pride. His paranoia. And the viper's nest that surrounded him. At the court in Pella, many people still nursed grievances against the king. One of them was Pausanias. A young, handsome bodyguard whom Philip had once favored, until he allowed other courtiers, led by that same Attalus, to abuse him savagely. Pausanias demanded justice, but Philip merely laughed and tried to buy him off with gifts. Pausanias's humiliation was an open wound, and I knew how to sprinkle salt into wounds until they turned to gangrene. Through loyal intermediaries, I began whispering to Pausanias, "Why do you endure disgrace? Would a true man allow himself to be treated so? Glory awaits the one who dares strike down a tyrant." I never ordered him to kill. Oh no, I was wiser than that. I merely led him to the edge of the abyss and told him that falling could feel like flying. Meanwhile, Philip, fearing the threat of war with Epirus, a threat I carefully stoked by urging my brother toward hostility, decided to seek reconciliation. He offered to marry off his daughter, my daughter as well, Cleopatra, to my brother. The wedding was to take place in Aegae, the ancient capital. It was the perfect moment. The whole world would be watching, all the Greek envoys would be there. Philip's triumph was to be his epitaph. The wedding day in Aegae was brilliant. The sun flooded the white marble of the theater. Thousands gathered to honor the most powerful king of the age. Philip, dressed in white, chose to enter the theater without his guards, to show his fearlessness and closeness to the people. He walked between the statues of the 12 Olympian gods. The 13th statue bore his own likeness. He had placed himself among the gods. Hubris, pride. The gods do not forgive that. I was not there in body, but my will hung in every breath of wind. When Pausanias leapt out of the crowd, time seemed to stop. A short blade, hidden beneath his cloak, flashed in the sunlight. A strike. Precise, directly into the heart. Philip fell. The screams of the crowd drowned out everything. The guards threw themselves upon the assassin, hacking him to pieces before he could speak a single word. Convenient, the dead do not talk. Alexander was there. He did not falter. While others panicked, he, surrounded by his loyal companions, took control of the situation. The army proclaimed him king that same day. My son became king. I returned to Macedonia not as an exile, but as queen mother, but my work was not yet done. There were still those who threatened him. There was still Cleopatra Eurydice and her newborn child. History will judge me for this act. Chroniclers will write that I was a monster. But they are men, safe in the comfort of their studies. They do not know what it is to look into the eyes of your child's death. If I had left them alive, the Macedonian nobility would have used Cleopatra's son as a banner against Alexander. A civil war would have begun. My son could have died. I could not allow that. I entered Cleopatra's chambers. She sat on the bed, clutching the infant to her chest. Her eyes were wide with terror. She knew who I was. She knew why I had come. The room smelled of fear and milk. My guard stood at the door. I wanted to do it myself. Or at least bear witness. You've lost the game. Little girl, I said softly. He's just a child, she whispered, shielding the infant. He has done nothing to you. He exists. That alone was enough. There are many versions of what happened next. Some say I seized the child and killed it before its mother's eyes. Others claim I forced her to watch as the child was slowly burned in a brazier. The truth was simpler, and darker. I placed before her a dagger, a rope, and a cup of hemlock. Choose, I said. If you do it yourself, I promise the child will die quickly and without pain. If not, my people will not be so merciful. She wept. She begged. She cursed me in the names of all the gods. I stood unmoving, like a statue of Nemesis. In my heart there was a desert. No regret. Only cold calculation. When it was over,